You're listening to episode 56, Effie's Story, a son with a rare disease, CTNNB1. Hi, and welcome to the Child Life On Call podcast. When your child is sick, the whole world seems to stop in its tracks. Plans and priorities change, and your number one job becomes figuring out how to get your child well again. For some of us, rest, medications, and relaxation can do the trick. But for others, it takes more. It takes countless doctor appointments, invasive medical testing, therapy, surgeries, the list goes on, and then you still may not have all of the answers or results you were hoping for. This podcast features parents of children that have an illness or medical condition and gives them a place to share their own journeys and experiences. We will talk about the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, but one thing seems to remain the same. Children are resilient and teach us more about ourselves and the world than we could ever imagine. Thank you so much for lending a listening ear and opening up your heart to these families and this podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor.
You appreciate those small moments so much more than you would have before, like when your kid picks up a marker, when your kid swallows some food, when they knock down a tower, when they put the ball in the bucket, when you hear them laugh, when you hear them say mom in their own version, whether it's sign language or a sound. When you know what it is, you really learn about maximizing these really special moments.
Hello and welcome back to Child Life on Call. I am Katie Taylor, your host, and I am so happy and grateful that you are here today, especially to Effie Parks, host of the Once Upon a Gene podcast, who shares her story with us today. If you are here for the first time, I want to let you in on a little secret that listeners who already listen to this podcast know. And that is that the experiences and insight you gain from listening to parent stories is monumental. As a parent, a human, a healthcare professional worker, their vulnerability and courage in sharing will undoubtedly change your perspective on life, your professional experience, parenting, whatever it may be. It's just amazing. And all of this happens within a podcast episode. It just absolutely wows me. But we are also more than a podcast. Child Life on Call is a community of parents and professionals that share ideas, stories, and resources to help you navigate your child's unique experiences. We give you strategies to support yourself and your family through life's challenges, and we are so glad that you are here. So let's get on to Effie. I'm going to be real with y'all and tell you that I do most of my podcasting on weekday evenings. You know how that mom life, work life, fit everything in you when the kids are asleep type of life goes. And no matter what, on those weekday evenings, there's just a bit of apprehension on my part. Just because it's at the end of the day, I wonder, will I be too tired? Will I feel exhausted? What if I'm not on my game when I'm listening to their stories? And of course, the moment I get on the phone, that all changes and I'm completely mesmerized and inspired. And Effie's story is absolutely no different. We were on the phone at 8:00 p.m. and I could have talked to her until midnight. She's just amazing. Listen in as you hear her story about how she went from accepting the final word from healthcare professionals at the beginning of her son's life to stepping in as literally a member of the team. Listen how she defines self-care in a way that is not just calm-inducing and relaxing, but also just makes her feel like a mom who needs a break. And listen in on how she so accurately describes the moment she realizes she has never met anyone in the world like her son before. It's incredibly powerful, and I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Hi, everybody. My name is Effie Parks. I host a podcast called Once Upon a Gene, and I'm a mom and a wife. I live in Seattle, Washington. I have two amazing little kiddos, a 4-year-old named Ford and an almost 2-year-old named Esme. So it's just after Christmas, and we haven't seen any snow or rain yet. We're excited for the new year. It's been a long year for everyone. For my family, it's actually been one of the easiest years, believe it or not. I think a lot of families like ours can kind of connect to this a little bit. We're all kind of used to being a little more isolated from people and not necessarily going out as much because our kids are sick a lot or they're hospitalized a lot. So, in the beginning especially, I was like, "Why is everybody freaking out? This is like
Mhm.
Tuesday."
Yep. Yes.
And another bright spot is my son has super, super low tone, and he's had respiratory viruses and pneumonia almost his whole life. And since March of this year, he hasn't been sick at all. He's
Wow.
never not had a fever or respiratory virus, and it has just been glorious. So, while I know there are so many hard things that obviously come along with this, those are the things that my husband and I have really held on to, that have been a really nice relief in 2020 for us. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where we're at right now.
I love that perspective. It's true. It's like people are staying away from each other and wearing masks, and because of that, a lot of the viruses that normally take over. I'm so glad to hear that this year has been better for you guys.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's that. And also, Ford isn't in 100 things a week like he
Mhm.
normally is. He's not going to all of his therapies and school with other kids. So all of the powers combined have just really strengthened his immune system, I hope.
That's
If anything,
amazing.
it's been a nice break.
And little Esme doesn't know any different quite yet, probably, so she's just enjoying all of the family time.
Yeah, she is so excited to be able to see all of us every single morning. It's like, "It's you guys again, yay!"
Yay.
So, our playgrounds just opened up, like, 2 or 3 months ago, and that's blowing her mind.
Yeah.
They've been closed her entire, like, sentient, mobile life, so she's having a really great time right now.
Oh, for sure. It's like when you actually have to get in the car to go somewhere, you realize this is why we never do this. It's so much work to actually have to put everything together and get out there. So, yes,
It's hard.
I love the bright spots of 2020, and it sounds like Ford had a few of them. So that's excellent.
Yes, definitely.
Well, talk to us a little bit about I love your podcast, and I want to talk about that because I think you and I kind of have similar. We were looking for something and we couldn't find it, so we made it. And so we have that within us. And I don't know, that I ever thought I would be a podcaster. Actually, I can say for certain I never thought I would. But talk to us about Ford and your journey and kind of what led you to starting the podcast and what your mission is.
Yes, so Ford was born, like 4.5 years ago, and I thought I had a totally normal pregnancy. I felt great. I felt beautiful. My hair was thick for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And, Casey and I were just so excited to be parents. We had always wanted to be. And as soon as Ford was born, he was born with a pretty low birth weight. They didn't say anything about it necessarily. We went home and we were having an impossible time feeding Ford. We would, I couldn't get him to latch, and I went and did all of the things. I went to the lactation specialist every other day for months. Nothing was working. I come from a really large family. I started babysitting when I was like 6, okay? Like I knew I could do this. I wasn't
Yeah.
afraid of children or I knew what I was doing. And the longer that it went on, the more uncomfortable Ford got. He was crying, he was writhing, he was not sleeping, he was screaming all the time. And I know a lot of parents say that, but Ford was. We were taking him into the pediatrician once a week, telling our doctor that Ford seemed like he was in pain. He seemed like something was hurting in his stomach. And they never listened to us. They told us we were new parents. They told us Ford had colic. They told me to give him some Caro syrup and everything would be fine. And it would take us like 3 hours to get a couple ounces down him. And a lot of the time, most of it was on his bib, on his
Mm.
chest, because it would come out of his mouth. And we just continued. I made an appointment every single week, and I was in there saying, "No, something's wrong." And finally, one day, she looked at me kind of horrified, and she said, "Effie, I'm worried about Ford." and I've made you an appointment at Children's Hospital in the morning." So I was so happy that she finally listened to me and that she finally heard me, but I was so mad.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
so I was so mad at her, and, um, it's almost like she was on her computer, and I realized that she kinda saw something, and hindsight, I was like, nobody ever gave me, like, that chart stuff that all the parents are always talking about. I never heard anything about Ford's chart. We only just talked about how he wouldn't eat and how he was crying,
Right.
and I just kinda thought, maybe she just actually looked at it and looked at the history and realized, "Okay, this is a big big red fire truck."
Mhm.
Uh, so I took Ford to, the neurodevelopmental clinic that next morning. That's where she had referred us for some reason, and as soon as we got into the appointment, the doctor did all these measurements on Ford, and, I wasn't really expecting anything particular. I was concerned about Ford eating,
Mhm.
and she really blasé was like, "Yep, Ford is, more than 4 standard deviations below the norm. He definitely has microcephaly, really low tone." She just started rattling the stuff off like someone already told me,
Mm.
and nobody has ever told me that.
And it's like a foreign language when she's saying these things to you. You have no idea what it means.
Yeah, I had no idea what hypotonia meant. I had no idea what she was talking about. The only reason that microcephaly even clicked is because Zika was in the news a couple years ago,
Right.
but I still didn't realize what that was, I guess.
Mhm.
Uh, and everything just kind of, I kind of equate it to, I've been in a couple car accidents that rolled over, and when your car accident is rolling, you feel everything and you see
Mm-mm.
all this stuff dropping, and you are in really, really slow motion. Like it's weird. You can hear your heart beating and you don't hear any sound
Yeah.
other than that, nothing. And that's kind of what happened to me in that room when she said that. And I don't remember anything else from that
Mhm.
appointment. I know that we got called by that doctor, I guess later, or maybe they called my husband because I honestly have zero memory of the rest of that appointment. And we were told to bring Ford into the ER. So we did. We brought our little 4-month-old boy into the emergency room at Children's Hospital, and they admitted him immediately, and he stayed there for about a week. He
Wow.
was admitted for failure to thrive, and another thing I didn't really understand, and it was just, how it is in the hospital. There was just person after person after person in and out all day, all night, and I didn't really know what was going on.
Mhm.
It was like, I'll never forget it. It was really hard, and it was really scary, and I had never had any exposure really to, the medical world at all. I'm super healthy. I didn't even go to the doctor as a kid. Like, it just wasn't in my world, other than doctors and nurses are amazing and you do what they say.
Mm.
And, that was kind of the beginning of my learning curve of realizing that I had to advocate for myself and my child. And
Mhm.
I had to ask questions and I had to say no. And I had to find other answers because I was going with the flow so much in the beginning because I was trying to be polite and I was trying to do what the doctors told me or whatever. And I realize now, I realized pretty soon after actually that you can't do that. You can't do
Mm-mm.
that if you want to get help. And you can't do that if you really wanna know what's going on. So it was a big crash course for sure for us in the beginning.
The car wreck equation makes so much sense because it's like your brain trying to make sense of trauma that your body is experiencing. So when you're
Mm,
in that doctor's room and they're saying all these words to you, it's like you're literally blindsided, right? You have no idea,
totally.
you cannot make sense of the words that are coming out. And you know, we can't exactly teach people to advocate before they go through before they even go through an experience
But because of the experience that you've gone through and now what you're doing through your podcast, you're literally making it possible for caregivers, for parents, for people who haven't been through something before to maybe turn on a light switch and say, I need to start advocating for myself in my everyday life so that when I get into a medical experience, I'm just really used to doing that, you know? Ugh,
Totally, totally. Which is definitely one of the ways this podcast was born, right? Uh, after that, it was just like it was just like a tsunami of things happening, and
mhm,
the fear about Ford's health and his future and us as parents, like digging this deep, deep hole and like bearing
mm,
our expectations of what we thought this was going to be like. And
right, and it's gone.
it's gone. And, I had 5 girlfriends. I had 5 girlfriends that all had kids within 6 weeks of me. And,
Wow.
we were pregnant together and we had all these lofty ideas that we were going to raise our kids together and this and that and this. And like, it was so apparent just even within a few months of Ford's development that like this was not going to be a good place for me to be,
Right.
at least for a while. Um, which in turn was one of the things that made me feel so isolated, which I think all of us feel in the beginning. There are some lucky ones who don't, and that's amazing. But
Mhm,
I did, I felt so alone. I didn't have friends that had kids like mine. I didn't grow up with kids like Ford. I didn't have adult friends who were disabled. I had no clue. I had no clue about the rare disease community and anything. I really didn't. And you spend a lot of time alone with your kid in the car, going to early intervention appointments, going to every specialist appointment, especially in the beginning. I mean, we were at the doctor's 3 times a week for a year easily on top of therapies. And podcasts just became a lifeline for me. I would just search in the search bar of the podcasts like
mhm,
disability, special needs,
mhm.
rare disease. I just
Yep.
searched all of those things. They're way better. They're way more searchable now than they were a few years ago. But like only a handful of that stuff came up. And when I listened to a few that really spoke to me, it it changed everything. And it it put some air back in my lungs, and it let me know that there were other people like me. Like I say, actually getting to hear your voices, hear your stories, hear what you're going through from your heart, just it connected to me. That medium connected to me so much more than reading a blog or
Mhm,
a book that I ordered. I felt those people, and they were a companion to me when I was in the
mhm.
car or out on a walk. I could do all of the hard things with Ford with an earbud in and listen to
Right.
these stories. Um, and they dried up. They dried up really quick because there weren't that many 4.5 years ago.
Mhm,
And I just knew that I had to be a part of that conversation. I knew that it was a piece of my purpose, and I knew I had to open my own doors to meet these people and become friends with so many and just have a
mhm.
community that I felt like I belonged to because I really didn't belong anywhere at that point as a mom.
I love everything you're saying about podcasts and, would add on the ability to be passive in a relationship, which doesn't normally happen.
Mm,
Usually people are
totally.
looking for like a lot of that equal friendship and or equal, whatever your relationship is. And with the podcast world, you just don't have to give a lot. And you can start and you can stop and you can not ever listen to it again or listen to it two more times. It's just such an incredible medium to get
Oh
that
my
connection.
God.
And I agree with you.
Katie, I love what you just said, and I never thought about it that way, but that is so, so true. Especially with the bandwidth that we don't
Sure.
have And yeah, maybe having that one-sided connection when you need to pull from it is so valuable for families going through that in when they're in the thick of it, when they're in the trenches. And yeah, I love how you put that. I'm gonna steal that for sure.
You should, you should. I'm gonna steal yours. Talk to me about, we're talking about bandwidth, especially. Like, I think about you with a 4-month-old getting the wind knocked underneath you. He's been hungry. Feeding is a challenge for a new mom and a baby, no matter which way you look in it. And you add what you guys are going through, and it's really unimaginable. So you go into the hospital with even less sleep, even more things you don't know. Your brain is trying to make sense of things. You talked about it started to click that you needed to advocate. And I guess when you started advocating and asking questions, you guys got some answers. And can you walk us through, finally getting that diagnosis and how you went through that experience?
Yeah, well, the first thing I did after that hospitalization was find a new pediatrician.
Hmm.
Uh, I do feel a little bad for her. She actually did come visit Ford in the hospital that week, which I thought was really kind of her. Um, but I did know that she was not our person, and that I needed to find someone who was going to listen to me the first time and not brush me off. So that's something that I didn't realize I could do either. I was going in there for 3 months once a week, and I didn't realize that I could just get another one. So that was my first thing that I did. And, after that hospital visit, I got connected with early intervention, which I'm sure all of your guests are familiar with. If your child has some form of developmental delay or whatnot, there are facilities in your communities that provide services to children before they're 3 years old. Physical, OT, speech, all of the things. And those therapists were they were they were so special in so many ways to me, and so many have just remained my friends since Ford turned 3. But I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from them because before I was meeting other parents, they already knew all of them, and they would always give me little bits of wisdom like, "Hey, Effie, have you thought about this? Have you tried this? I know this other mom, went here. You can go find a chair that you can borrow at this place." And I just I just started realizing that I didn't need to wait for any healthcare professional to tell me what I needed and when I could have it. And I learned a lot from those therapists, honestly, and I started bringing that to my doctor's attention and getting referrals for everything that I was told that I should get, even though I didn't know it existed
Hmm.
until someone told me. So I just went in asking. I found a pediatrician that listened to me and really just did whatever needed to be done for Ford, and I adore him to this day. Um, so I started doing that. I I definitely didn't take failure to thrive and low tone for an answer. So I kind of started researching and discovered that I should get a geneticist referral, which I then got. And she was really wonderful too, and really pushed for a test for Ford, because she had her own idea of what she thought Ford might have. And I think it piqued her interest a little bit. So she helped push those tests through faster than I think they go through for other people sometimes. Um, so that happened, and we did get a diagnosis ultimately when Ford was about 16 months old. We had a whole exome sequencing test, and she called and she said, "Well, what I thought Ford had, he doesn't, but he does in fact have something." And then we had our meeting, diagnosis day. I think everyone else who's ever had that can relate to that
Hmm.
car accident moment. And she said, Ford has CTNNB1. He's 1 in 30 in the world. I could only find this one little paper on it, and it looks like some of the kids can take a few steps and some of the kids can say a couple words, but that's all I know about it.
Wow.
And that was it. And then She didn't really stay connected with me after that. I kind of kept in contact with her genetic counselor because she was a lot warmer and fuzzier and explained um,
Right.
a lot of resources that I could maybe look towards or something.
Mm.
So that's how that happened, and then it was back to Google, right? What the heck is this? My geneticist doesn't even know, nor does she seem to care because it's too rare to care.
Right.
So luckily, one of the parents who had a child with CTNNB1 had started a Facebook group, and right away she was wrong, just like I had seen a lot of people be wrong, and there were 50 people diagnosed with it.
Hey,
So uh, that was a gift to find that group, and there's almost 200 patients now that we've found with the diagnosis, and we find a couple every couple months, so our community's growing.
is this within the US or within the whole world?
Yeah, it's worldwide. Yep,
Mm.
CTNNB1 worldwide.
You know, I think about being in the position of when when a doctor doesn't, or a physician or someone in a place of power, and I would say a lot of healthcare professionals, whether they believe it or not, are in a place of power when they're working with families. And it's hard not to take it personally when they don't get as invested in your child as you are. And of course, you understand they're your child, but it feels like, why aren't you screaming like I'm screaming? If this doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't make sense to you. It's like we're that little chip of human compassion and empathy, and just somebody sitting next to you and listening and walking through what you do know could totally change an
Yeah,
experience that you're having. Like, I'm thinking
yeah,
the pediatrician's office, I'm thinking this diagnosis day meeting that you had. It's both of those pieces were missed for you. And
yes,
it changes the way you look back at that.
yeah. I was really, really angry for a long time. Um, like anger, I don't think I ever really had. I was so upset at that pediatrician. I was so upset at my prenatal care. I was upset at my appointment where the lady just assumed I had heard microcephaly and all this stuff, and she was talking about it like it was ABC. I
Yeah.
was I was really I was really hurt by all of these people who I had held in such high regard who didn't seem to care. But I did learn that you can find people that do care,
Mm.
and, you know, especially a lot of the healthcare professionals that are working with the doctors or with the geneticists or the nurses in the hospital or the therapists that are coming to your home, like, those were my bread and butter, like, those were my people.
Yeah. So you guys receive the diagnosis and you get this amazing Facebook community, which I think can be a game changer. So if anyone is listening and they haven't gone into Facebook and typed in their child's medical issue, it's really, you don't even have to engage. That's another passive one that I like. But I'm sure, Effie, you will agree, like, take everything with a grain of salt. There may be some bad medical information, some, worst case scenarios. So you do have to protect your heart with that a little bit. But overall, I think really, really positive groups. Um, how did you guys take it from there to, I guess, present day? What's your rhythm like? What's your routine like with Ford?
Yes, on the Facebook groups, go find them and make sure that yeah, pick and choose. You'll know right away the temper in each group and just leave if you don't feel right about it or if you're seeing stuff that's just really bringing you down. But
Right.
there are some really amazing ways to connect with people there. So day to day for us, like I said, it's so different. It's so different right now. And, unfortunately, Ford isn't getting a lot of the therapy that he's used to and that he should be getting and that he needs. So that's really hard and was really hard for us in the beginning to watch him regress a lot in certain ways. Um, Seattle has opened back up a little, so Ford gets to get back on his horse. He does hippotherapy once a week, which is incredible. And it's been something that's given Ford more core strength than any other therapy. He is currently getting to actually have speech therapy in person, which is amazing. We're trying to find which AAC device Ford is going to kind of work best with. So that's really exciting. He's showing a lot of promise in one of them, and I just can't wait to get it all squared away so Ford can have more independence in that way. Let's see. Days aren't as busy, right? We're not in the car as much. I get up, I take care of my 1-year-old obviously, and Ford's meds start right as he wakes up. He's G-tube fed, so I get all that stuff ready and I hook him up, and I hope he doesn't throw up. His meds and his food are always just a really fine balance depending on how he's doing. And Ford also wears his AFOs, so we pop those beddies on. And, depending on the day, Ford will spend some time in his stander. He will use his wheelchair. He has a super awesome red wheelie that he's so good at maneuvering around. He's way too much of a daredevil, and he's already went off an embankment and fallen over. He loves going fast. He loves doing tricks. He's super independent in that, and we just feel so grateful that he has that freedom. Um, it's a little complicated right now. Starting, my husband's actually going to be going back to in person, which I'm freaking out about because Ezzy can walk and Ford cannot, and she's almost 2. So she doesn't want to sit in the stroller when we're out. She wants to run around and play in the leaves and go down the slide. And Ford wants to go on a walk because
Right.
he wants to be moving. And so I'm not sure how I'm going to do this exactly. I can get Ezzy to stay in the stroller for a couple minutes and then she wants to get out. And I can't necessarily manage her and keep an eye on her and keep Ford happy. So any tips, parents? That would be great. I need a walking buddy is what I've decided.
You know what? It's making me smile right now because I'm going to read to you what you wrote to me. You said, bearing my own expectations.
Yes,
And I think
true.
that might be the key. I think it might be lowering it as low as you can go and not trying to do too much and figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Oh
It's
my
you
God.
know how this goes.
Thank you for that reminder.
I'm like, you've got this. You already know this. You've written it down.
Madness. Thank you.
Oh,
I love
you,
that.
no, that's true though. And I love that question, for a Facebook group, and putting it out there and seeing what other people have done. And they, gosh, people are so creative in what they can
They
come up
are.
with.
Yeah, there's some serious mom givers out there that I've learned some tricks from.
Love it. Big fan of the backpack leash. And I don't know how a lot of people think about it, but for me, it's all about safety. I
Okay, well,
really
I was
like it.
thinking about that today. I was like, are people still leashing? Like, can I get one of those? Because
I mean,
that
they
might
make
be
them
it.
so cute. I mean, when it comes down to it, safety is important and take all the stairs you want, like whatever.
Okay, I'm getting a leash. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool, same. So, I think I know the answer to this and that it's podcasting, but I'd love to hear what else you do to take care of yourself. And the reason I ask is because, you've got so many different medications to think of. Like the normal mom brain can pick out, where the left sock is of the matching one that you saw under a cushion 8 days ago. So you
Totally.
have all that on top of G-tube feeds, medications, appointments. How do you keep track of it all? And then how, on the flip side, do you take care of yourself so that you can keep track of it all?
Who knows how any of this is happening? It's day to day. Sometimes I use a calendar, sometimes I have sticky notes. I don't know
Yep.
how Ford stuff gets done. Thank goodness for electronic text message reminders, that stuff.
Uh-huh.
Taking care of myself is actually a really big deal. Uh, like, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, I started realizing that that wasn't happening, and it showed up in my body, and I felt like I was choking all day, every day, and I couldn't take a deep breath. It felt like a scarf was tied around my neck, and I realized that it was showing up in my body because I wasn't taking care of myself and I wasn't dealing with the stress of our situation. So that was a big red flag to me, and um, I'm I feel lucky that I have a mom and a sister that are like super airy fairies, and they do a lot of body work and they do a lot of holistic stuff. And I called them and I was like, I need help. I'm coming over. I'm I'm flying to Salt Lake to see you because I'm not okay and I can't do this unless I'm okay. So I kind of just started there, like a hard reset. And
Hmm.
um, one thing my sister told me to do, I bought this big magnetic chalkboard magnet that goes all across the freezer on my fridge. And I drew 4 oxygen tanks and I put 4 things in there that I check off my list every day that make me better. So one of them is drinking water, one of them is eating something healthy, one of them is a breathing exercise that I've learned, and one of them is going outside. And they're non-negotiables for me. Those are the things that I found for myself I have to do every day to take care of myself. And I know they're small things, they're not these glossy, pretty self-care routines, but those things make me feel amazing, especially when I get to cross them off my list. I feel accomplished, I feel proud of myself, and they're all things that fill me up in some way. So those things I do every day, and they're staring at my face. I have beautiful, like, colorful chalkboard art that I did it all with. So like, it's there, and I can't ignore it.
I love it. And that means your family can't ignore it either. They can help
Totally,
keep you accountable.
totally. So that's one thing I do. Uh, I take a lot of walks. I listen to podcasts. I go on walks. Going outside helps me. I really do make time to hang out with one of my girlfriends. So that's something. Uh, Another thing I do is I lie to my loved ones and I tell them that I have to go on an errand to Target because there's a Mexican restaurant that's in the same parking lot. And I go there and I order a margarita and I get a taco salad and I eat chips and salsa. And nobody wants to go to Target with you. Nobody wants to do that errand. So like they're always like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I got the kids. Go to Target." And I
That
go
is
to that Mexican
genius.
restaurant while I can see Target through the window and I just chill.
Oh,
Sometimes I bring my headphones, sometimes I don't. And it's the best. Eating by myself in like one of my favorite places, yeah, I feel like $1,000,000 all day because I did something funny and sneaky and nobody knows my secret unless they listen to your episode. So I
that
just go to
is genius.
Target. Those are like my big things that I do, I think, for myself.
I love that you use your people, and I think it not sorry, not in a bad way. You use the
No.
people who are wanting to give you support, and it can be
Yeah,
hard to let go when you've got a kiddo with a lot of chronic issues and medications, because nobody is going to do it as well as you can. So finding that trust and that balance, but knowing that you need to go out, it's just as beneficial.
totally. And I hear that a lot from other parents, like, no, nobody knows how to take care of his trach or his G tube or this or that. And I'm like, yes, they do.
Hmm.
Teach someone to do it. They can do it. They might not do it exactly the same way as you, but you can go to Target for an hour while they do that, and it'll be fine.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that takes just a little bit of practice to get used to it and come home and see everything's okay.
Yeah, and that's an offshoot of so many things, right? Like learning how to accept help is a big part of being in this community, right? And having a kid like ours is just accepting it, graciously accepting it, and really kind of twisting that table sometimes if you have to and think about when I offer this to someone, I don't want them to feel like I would be put out by helping them. Like, I would never want you to feel that way. So other people don't want to feel that they don't want you to feel that way either. Like, they're genuinely trying to find ways that they can help you. So let them help.
I love that. I'm thinking about Ford and I just laugh about him being a little daredevil and just, little 4-year-old boy wanting to go fast. I adore that.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
can you even put into words what he has taught you since he came into your life 4.5 years ago?
It's like what hasn't Ford taught me is more like it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of the things that every special parent will tell you, right? Like, everything slows down, and you you appreciate those small moments so much more than you would have before. Like when your kid picks up a marker, when your kid swallows some food, when they knock down a tower, when they put the ball in the bucket, when you hear them laugh, when you hear them say mom in their own version, whether it's sign language or a sound, when you know what it is, you you really learn about maximizing these really special moments. You learn about maximizing your own self-care moments, right? Like maybe it's that beautiful hot shower that you've figured out a way to get and not be vigilant while you're doing it. And you learn how to take things in smaller bites that you can absorb and really kind of savor. So he taught me how to do that. He taught me how to just ground myself a little better and not sweat the small stuff, right? Like cliche, but so true. I feel like so many parents like us can laugh off a billion times more things than we could have before.
Mm.
And I also, not that I was ever judgy or anything before, but like maybe if I saw someone's 5-year-old or 6-year-old in a stroller, I would have been like, why is that kid in the stroller all day? I would never, ever think that now. I would just be
Mm.
like, hey, what is that stroller that a 6-year-old fits in? I need it.
Yeah.
Like, I just, I, I, I don't judge people that are in front of me anymore in any way because I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what they're dealing with. I don't know how far they've come. I don't know if they have a diagnosis, if they have a loved one with a diagnosis. I just assume everyone is doing their best. And when you can really show up for people in that way, even if it's just a hello rather than shifting your eyes away and maybe ignoring them because you think that it would be uncomfortable. I've learned a lot about stuff like that. I've learned so much deeper empathy than I even had before, for people, and I'm grateful to Ford for that, um, because I think I am so proud of the mom I get to be now than maybe the mom I would be if Ford didn't have a diagnosis. If I was just skating along, living that, expected motherhood path that I thought I was going to live, I'm not sure if I would have noticed a lot of this small stuff.
Man, all I can think is that you, and by way of Ford, are gifting all of these things to everybody who is listening right now. And just the specific examples you're giving about not judging the 6-year-old in a stroller, not judging the mom who's letting their kid do screen time. You just have no
Totally.
idea what is happening on the other side. And the way you're able to articulate all of this for the listeners to hear today is just incredible. And for me, I'm just so grateful to you.
Well, I'm grateful to you and podcasts like this and communities like this because I don't I don't know if I would still feel like I was choking if I hadn't found it, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
It's important, and it's you never know who's listening.
Well, speaking of listening, how can I know everybody's going to run and absolutely just type in your name and your podcast in? So tell us all
I
about
wish.
how we can get to you and listen to you more
Thank
and follow
you.
along with you. Yes, tell us everything.
So my podcast is called Once Upon a Gene with a G. It's onceuponagene.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I'm on there, so you can find me. And also something really exciting that just happened. Uh, my friends, Bo Bigelow and Daniel DeFabio, are founders of the Rare Disease Film Festival, which since COVID also became a television channel.
Oh.
So if you don't know, you need a Roku or an Amazon Fire. Download the Disorder Channel. It is such an incredible and beautiful resource. There's rare disease films. A lot of them are short and digestible. There are some long ones. There are some comedies even, but it's the only way to see films like this. And they're bringing them to the screen for people all around the world to watch. They're raising awareness for different diseases. The channel's amazing. Go find it. But Once Upon a Gene just became a TV show also on that channel, which it's like an interactive talk show. So it's a little different than the podcast. It's more like useful takeaway stuff, and we have a different guest every week. We've only published one episode so far, our Christmas episode that's out. So check it out, follow along. Like I said, it's interactive, so we need videos of your kids laughing. Okay, we have a laughter wheel. It's so amazing. And
That's
if your kid's
awesome.
name gets called, then we play a video of them laughing, and
Oh,
we raise a little awareness for whatever the little kiddo has going on. So
that
check it
is
out. I'm
amazing.
everywhere somehow.
Yeah, TV star podcast host. Don't worry about it, everybody. Effie was
It's
here
like
first, okay?
I do it only on Tuesdays. I don't know how I do it. I'm packing it in.
Pack it in. Well, good for you. And I am definitely going to go check that out. And we'll link to all of that stuff in the show notes page. So hopefully people can just click and go and watch and enjoy and learn more from you and all the great resources that you're bringing to the table.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you so much for your podcast and everything that Child Life does. It's incredible. And I love the perspective that comes from the angle of Child Life, too. It's really amazing. And I'm so happy to share this medium with you and all of your guests.
Thank you. Likewise, I feel the exact same way. I'm so glad we were able to connect.
Thank you so much to Effie for being here today. It was such an honor to be able to speak with you and share it on the Child Life on Call podcast. I will share all of Effie's resources, podcasts, and information on the show notes page, and I will see you all again soon. Thank you for listening to the Child Life on Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life on Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.